Hello everybody and welcome back to the Building Investors YouTube channel. I sincerely hope you're having a great day today. If not, put a smile on your face. Usually that helps bring in those endorphins and make you feel better. So anyways, as we get started with the framing process of this project, I went and purchased the materials as you could see in the dumpster. Is some 2x6s and some drywall. We'll be installing the drywall later, but right now we're going to be installing the 2x6s. What I'm doing now is just kind of making sure everything is where it should be. That way when I install things, it is as level as possible. So we're gonna go back out after we got those measurements. We're gonna take our 2x6s, we're gonna stack them and cut them. They're all basically gonna be the same length. The ones on the side, the uprights, gonna be 4 of those. And there's gonna be 2 up above that are a little bit shorter that I'm going to be shoving in the hole that you'll see. Anyways, so getting those marked now, my suggestion is to mark them all together if possible. So that way you don't have to take your measuring tape out more than once. You can just mark all your boards. If you know the measurements, it makes it easy. So mark them, take your nice Milwaukee saw and cut them to length. And sponsor welcome, of course. I would love to have a Milwaukee sponsor, hint, hint. Anyways, cut all those boards to length, rack them and stack them. Basically, you're going to be cutting 4 of these for this process. Man, all those words just sound the same sometimes, don't they? Anyways, again, just cut it. And then once you get all of your boards cut, then you can take them inside. So one last one here and bam, they're all done. So anyways, grab them and carry as many as you want, but I'm just gonna carry them all at once because who needs 2 trips, right? Even though I'll let you in on a little secret, I had to carry those, put them back on the trailer, move the camera in, pick them back up, carry them in, put them back down, carry the camera in. It was a process just to get that one shot, but you know, I'll do the work for you guys. That way you can have all the fun. So anyways, taking out, setting that board up where it's supposed to go. These are framing screws, decking screws, 3-inch screws. So you're gonna put 2 of those per board there. Those are supporting the old framing of the pole barn. And that way they don't wiggle around. It has a nice structure to it. I made that as level as possible. That way the next board, which is the important one I'll share about later, that way it's perfectly level. So get it all screwed off, 2 screws per board, and then screw it to the bottom of the base plate of the wall. That way it doesn't move around. And then again, like I said, just make sure it's as level as possible. This board isn't as important as the next, but make sure it's level. Man, it's getting warm in here, so I'm taking my jacket off. Take off my Home Depot hat because, you know, they haven't sponsored me either, but maybe one day. Then put the next board in and then start screwing it off. Again, I'm using the Deckmate screws. They work just fine. So then bring the level over. You want to make sure it's both level in both directions. So level here and then level the other direction where the wall is actually standing. This one, that 2x6 that I'm about to cut, was a little bit in the way. It was just wasn't letting the board be plumb enough, level enough. So I'm going to cut it with a Sawzall here. But my blade was crooked, so you can correct that with a little smash of the hammer. And then once you get your 1/4 inch cut out of this board to make the 2x6 level, then you can push over and make it level. But to reach in the very back here, I just use my Dremel tool and then finish the rest of the cut. That way I can move that board over. So ta-da, it's all cut. So easy as that. Now I put the level on it and it looks good. And then move on to the next step, which would be finished screwing it off. Again, pretty simple process, but it is what it is. So work down screwing and the last one here, and then we want to make sure that the wall is secured at the bottom, because as you'll see as I tap on this, the whole wall jiggles, and we don't want the wall jiggling. That's not good. So again, secure it to the base plate just like so. That way you can make sure that the wall's not jiggling. So anyways, clean those hands off all the sawdust you got. Move on to the next step. So I had a screw on this one, left as an example. It didn't quite bite the wood behind it. So you just stick your hammer in there, give a little pressure, and then back the screw out, because the top of the screw doesn't have any threads, and so sometimes you get a screw stuck. So just put your hammer on there and then back it out, and then find a place that will bite. So make sure it's plumb. That one looks good, and this one looks good, and they hopefully line up, which would be nice. Next step is you're going to want to get a kind of a header put in. This one is a non-load bearing wall, so it doesn't need an actual header like that's going to support the floor above or anything. But what I'm doing here is making an L shape out of the 2x6s, which I'll explain a little bit later. But this will be for the top of the door and for the framing process, especially when I go to hang the barn doors on the backside. You want some support. So I'm taking those deck screws again and screwing the L shape together. That way they become one as nice and strong as possible. So a screw here, a screw there. So, I mean, in the end, I think I have a screw every foot or so, or every 16 inches along that board, and then securing it from the new wall board, new studs that I have sitting up there to that as well. That way they're locked together and just making the nice wall nice and stable, tight together. So I got it all screwed off on both sides, and then finishing off the screwing the middle, and then here's a little close-up of it. So 2x6 on the right there, that's to support the old framing where the pole barn framing came through on both sides there. And then on top is that L-shaped 2x6 tucked up there behind the insulation. And so this wall is insulated because it used to be an exterior wall, but I'm gonna keep it insulated because the sound deadening properties that insulation has will be great for these two nurseries to be next to each other. So pull that insulation, make it as neat as possible, and try not to get it in your mouth, in your lungs, on your skin. It's not fun. But anyways, the second set of 2x6s is going to be for the opening of the door. We want these to be very level because you're gonna see it, because we're gonna be attaching later on some trim boards on there, and we don't want them to be all willy-nilly. We want it to look nice. So what I'm doing here is just making sure it looks as good as possible, securing the bottom, and then also I'm going to be using my speed square to make sure the stud is square to the wall, because we don't want it tilted one direction, because then that will look weird too, and then the finished trim is not easy to install when everything is not square to each other. So take your speed square, use it as a straight edge, and then knock it over to the line that you made to make it level. And then once you get it screwed off, it will be all locked in nice and square. And yeah, just make sure it's nice and secure. We'll come back and do some more securing in a minute, but for now, securing the top and bottom with some screws. You could use a nailer if you wanted to, but screws are just easier for me, especially on the remodel process. And then once you get it all done, double check, because you don't want to have to come back and fix it later. So double check, double check, double check. Anyways, next step, we're going to be using drywall screws. These are 1 5/8 drywall screws. These screws are used for 5/8 drywall, sorry. So this drywall is thicker than you would normally have in your house because it's commercial, and so you need longer screws than you would use in your residential house with 1/2 inch. You'd use 1 1/4 inch. So I'm using 1 5/8 drywall screws. Whew, that was a lot just about screwed, wasn't it? Anyways, I'm going to be screwing all the way around and then ending here on the other side, screwing off every about foot or so just to keep it locked in. It'll lock the wall in place, and then also lock the drywall to the framing, which is what needs to be done. So as you saw me measuring there, I want to put some blocking in between those 2x6s I have standing up just to kind of rigidify everything, if that's a word. So I'm taking my table saw here, also Milwaukee saw, very expensive. I had a battery go out in this. I wasn't quite happy because it went out so soon. But my new battery I bought for it has been working great, so that's good. But anyways, what I'm doing here is just ripping down some of the scrap lumber that I caught for those 2x6s to fill in the gap between the two vertical 2x6s to lock them together, which you'll see me here doing shortly. Again, make sure you're safe. I'm not wearing glasses, so maybe you should be wearing some safety glasses here, but I definitely have the safety squints on. As you can probably tell, I'm squinting. But anyways, make sure your fingers are clear. Use the fence as a guide. Hook your fingers around it and slide along it if you need to, or use a push stick. This chance it's just easier, a lot of space for my fingers, so I just pushed it through. So anyways, got those two boards. I'm going to come and slide them in here. And then I'm marking, as you'll see in a second, I'll be marking with measuring tape the center of that board. There's no need to. You can put it in there willy-nilly. But the neater you can make it, the better. So I marked, that's a 14-inch board, I think. So I marked 7 inches up on that second one. And then I can just put that center line on the center support there and then screw it off because we want to lock it in tight. So that's locking the left 2x6 into the right 2x6, making them kind of one. Also not necessary, but it's good for support. So once you got that done, you can move on to the left side, finish it, which I'll just skip because you've already seen me do one, so why watch me do another? So here's a close-up of the wall. We've got a little bit of filler strip there. We've got the 2x6, and we've got 2 layers of 5/8 drywall. On the other side, it's like a 1/2 and a 1/4, so it's like 3/4. But we're going to be using the scrap lumber there on the right that I took off for that door that we removed in the nursery, which you didn't see me do, but just trust me, I removed a door and all the trim. So what I'm doing here is just setting my table saw fence to cut this board directly in half, because then I can have 2 boards instead of 1. So this is just MDF trim board. It's nothing fancy, nothing special. But if I were to go buy material from Home Depot or whatever I'm shopping at, then it would cost me money. So might as well use scrap. So use whatever you can, because otherwise, if I were to buy these boards, it'd be like $15 just right there in those boards. So if you can just use scrap, do it. So anyways, taking this board, marking it where I want it. Might as well do 2 at once, save some time. I mean, time is money, so save whatever time you can. So taking my walkie saw here, cutting the boards to length, and then securing it with those same drywall screws I was using for the other side. This is just it doesn't have to be super strong, so a couple screws at the start and end and one in the middle. That's all you need. And then once you drywall, you can put your screws through that as well. But this is just to build out the depth of the drywall because the wall is too thin as it is with the 2x6, so adding some filler there. And then on the top, I want it to go all the way across. That way I can secure both sides of the drywall. So I'm gonna cut this board in half as well, which you'll see me do in a minute, but just marking to make sure it fits. So if I had plenty of wood, I just threw it up there like that, but not important. You can cut it in half. So there's my doggy Copper. He likes to hang out with me at work and he's a good boy. So anyways, get your table saw back out and cut that board in half. And then once you get the board cut in half, you can take it back, blah, 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 fill the hole. You want support as anywhere as possible, as often as possible for your drywall. Even though the drywall is thicker, it's nice to have support everywhere. So take that board back, stick it back up in place, and then screw it off. So again, one at the end, one in the middle, one on the other end. I think I came back and put 2 more in between those, but it's not a big deal. Just enough to hold it up there so you can put the drywall up. Because you're gonna have finished nails going through on your finished trim, you're gonna have screws on your drywall, a bunch of stuff. So a little time lapse here, filling the gap up there. There's no support up there, so I need to add something, some backer. So I just took some of that trim, threw it up there, threw a piece there, piece on the right side, and the piece on the bottom right where there's no support, and bottom left. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So pretty sweet. So anyways, on the other side, we're going to start cleaning up everything. As a tip, as a contractor, as a handyman, the cleaner and the faster you can do any process for a customer, the happier they are. So clean, and try not to scratch up your floors. Anyways, I'm going to stop the voiceover here shortly because I'm going to talk to you in person. So I hope you enjoyed. And here I go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, everybody. We finally got everything to the point where we're going to be doing some drywall. And I've explained everything up to this point, so I'm sure it won't be any mystery. But let me do a little recap of everything and then show you what our next steps are and why we did what we did. And any explanations of close-ups we could do here. So obviously we did the 2x6 for the framing of the door. And then we did a 2x6 up against the old, this is old pole barn, of course. The old pole barn framing came and tied into here. So supported those with that and then bridged the gap with some scrap lumber just to keep it firm. We're not gonna be mounting any swinging doors on this, so we don't need extra support. And this is a non-load bearing wall, so we don't need any big headers or anything. But as you saw, we put the 2x6 kind of in an L shape, one right above this one. That way we can screw into here. And then we put the barn doors on this side here. We'll have something to screw directly into there as well, which is nice. So not super robust. Like we could have came in here and put studs all the way across here, put in a real beefy header, which is tempting to do, but also not necessary. So we did this, and then we took all the trim pieces and scraps and we built it out because the wall thickness is a little bit different than the rest of the walls in the building. I mean, they're all different. So 2x6 was 3/4 here to match the same spacing they had on the sides. That way, when we put the drywall on here, it has the same depth, of course. So anyways, and then all the little brown pieces are the trim from the old door that used to be right here. And so we use those as blocking, that when we screw the drywall to those places that have less support, like along there's nothing for it to screw to except for right here. We don't want that to be floating. So we put the drywall up there and we can screw it to that and to this, lock it in nice and tight. So anyways, that's that. Got the room all cleaned up and we're getting ready to do the drywall. So next video you'll see that. So anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching and I hope that you learned something. If there's anything that I wasn't quite clear on the video, please let me know. I would love to see and hear from you. So anyways, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you later. Have a good one. God bless.